Hey everybody, welcome back. Josh Cantwell here, CEO at Strategic Real Estate Coach and Freeland Ventures. Welcome back to another edition of the Strategic Real Estate Coach podcast. And you are all in for a special treat today. We are here to talk with my good friend, Chris Cedar. Chris is a very experienced real estate investor and coach and mentor from the Billings, Montana market. And Chris and I have been working together for a number of years through kind of affiliate promotions and marketing initiatives, working together. And Chris has also been a coach for us, coaching our students, working with our students for about 3 or 4 years now. And so a lot of our most successful students work with Chris to kind of go from a new investor to intermediate investor, or from an intermediate investor to being a very advanced investor. To give you some insight about Chris, he is from a pretty small market, so he has a very big footprint in his market in Billings, Montana. But Chris has also done virtual wholesale deals in 6 or 7 or 8 different states. He's closed hundreds of deals, and his family, between him and his father and his businesses, they own and control well over 100, 125 rental properties. So Chris is a big-time cash flow investor. So Chris, welcome to the podcast, man. Good to have you back on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. So I know we just got up. We're getting started early, and you're going to be off and running with your day. So thanks for joining us early in the morning. So, Chris, why don't you just kind of fill in the blanks of anything I missed about your background, your history as an investor, and kind of what you're focused on today in your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, I'm in Billings, Montana. We're a smaller market, and I pretty much did grow up around real estate investing my entire life. After I graduated college, that's the business I decided to jump into. So I started slow. I started like any other student would. I found a mentor, which was my father. He showed me the ropes, showed me what he was doing, and I supplemented that with other education, learning. Really, the biggest thing for me was how to find deals, how to fund these deals, and then the process to doing them. So I really started doing that. Started slowly, and then we ramped it up to a point where we were doing, one year we did 20 rehab deals, and then I've kind of tapered it down to doing around 10 rehab deals a year, buying, seems like every year, buying a few more rentals, whether it's another couple duplexes, another fourplex. Right now I'm looking at a really nice fourplex deal to buy. I'm trying to get the guy to come down a little more on my price, but on his price, but getting there. But that's pretty much what we've been doing, just rehabbing away. Used to do a lot of wholesaling, virtual wholesaling, and now mainly we're just buying rentals and rehabbing properties.
Yeah, that was great segue too, Chris. Appreciate that. So a lot of the guys that we coach and teach seem to be in that 45-year-old, 40 to 45-year-old to 70-year-old avatar. That's a lot of the guys that come to our events, a lot of the women that come to our events, a lot of people that we coach, and a lot of them have, for the most part, have pretty stable jobs. You take like a Mark Carmona, for example, who was the director of a massive, basically a massive shelter, 2,000 residents. He was essentially the CEO, the director of this massive shelter. And Mark wasn't, hurting for money at all. You take, Chrissy Morrison and her husband, Phil, who have a really nice income from Phil's job as a medical sales rep and her as a teacher. And you take, RJ, who's selling medical type of equipment. Mike Johnston, who was a therapist, Mike Neal, who was a FedEx franchisee owner. Seems like a lot of the people that we work with already have some money, they have some resources, and they're really looking for what I think is cash flow. They're looking for really 2 things: freedom from their day-to-day job. They maybe got a job that they like, maybe they even still like it. Like Kyle Garifo was a therapist and was constantly asking people questions and kind of getting in their heads, and he liked that, but just never had the freedom to go to his kids' football games and soccer games and to see his daughter at cheerleading and stuff like that. So what rings out to me of what these folks want and what they want from real estate is freedom, time freedom to do what they want to do and build up ultimately just this massive passive cash flow. And in the meantime, while they're doing that, they're doing big rehab projects because it creates a massive windfall of cash. So you've coached a lot of guys, Chris. What's your take on their goals and objectives? When you sit down with one of our new students or you meet people at one of our live events, what do you think their goals and objectives are? And how do you help them kind of out of the gate? First couple coaching calls, how do you help them out of the gate kind of get started with understanding what they want and then start to take steps to get there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're spot on. Everyone, no matter what, it seems like they want more freedom. They want more time with their family. They don't want to be slaving away at a job for 40, 50, 80 hours a week. They want to be working for themselves. And most people, it seems like, they don't really need to or want to be multi-millionaires and create, $10 million businesses. Most want to make 120, 250, somewhere in that range per year, which with real estate investing, which with flipping houses is I would honestly say in any market across the United States is doable. There's a market right near me where I grew up, 3,500 people, and my dad, he still flips houses in that market. In that market, does probably 4 flips a year, makes about $30,000 per flip, so that's $120,000. And that's what I look at when I first sit down with a student. Kind of, what are your financial goals? What do you need to get yourself away from your job? Quit that job over the next 6 months. What do you need financially? Most people say they need $120,000. That's going to pay their bills and everything. So then I like to step it back. Okay, $120,000. How many flips is that going to take? And I'm always a little conservative, so I'll say $30,000 per flip.
Sure.
So if they need $120,000 divided by $30,000, they need 4 rehab deals to make that to set themselves free. And I like to dig a little deeper in that, and then in order to get 4 real estate deals over the next, say, 6 months, how many offers do we need to make? How much direct mail do we need to send to get 4 deals? So we really figure out a plan on all the different steps on how many offers. And then they can take that plan and each week know that they're leading towards that $120,000 goal with making offers, sending direct mail, doing marketing and everything. So that's what I feel is super important. Everyone to have a goal and then create an actionable plan from that goal.
Yeah, great point for sure. It's interesting that you said that about, our ideal kind of coaching student, our ideal client in that 40 to 45 to 70-year-old range. I don't think any of them are saying like, man, I want to do this to buy a Ferrari. I want to do this to buy a Lamborghini. I don't think I've heard that from anybody. When we have our mastermind meetings, 3-4 times a year, our live events, a lot of these guys, they're the kind of family people that they're married or maybe divorced, remarried. Maybe they have a blended family. Maybe they're taking care of their kids or their grandkids or just whatever. But the overarching theme is like freedom to spend time with family. And they don't want to take a step back in their lifestyle. But I think a lot of them would consider a huge win to just make the same money they're making, but to do it on their own and to have the freedom to go to their kids, school plays and basketball games and, baseball games. I remember in high school for me, our baseball games always started at like 4 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock. So school ended at 2:30 and then baseball games would start at like 3:30 or 4 o'clock. And my dad was always standing out in left field. He always stood down the right field, down the first base line. And a lot of times he was one of the very few dads there And the reason why my dad could do that was because he was an entrepreneur. He owned his own business, so he could leave early, work late if he wanted. So for him, and for a lot of our students, it's the time freedom and just replacing their current income. And then another thing I hear from a lot of guys, Chris, too, and Kyle mentioned this the other day. I was talking to him. He said, once they hit that level of creating a certain income, then it immediately pivots not to buying mansions and Ferraris and houses on the beach. It's immediately about leaving a legacy for that family, making things easier for their kids or grandkids. So just speak to that for a second, because, our primary, that seems like our primary group, and you talk to just as many students as I do. Is that how you see it too? Is that your take on our folks?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think, once most of the group, once they get, I would say, past that first year of doing deals, of making money, figuring out all the processes, then there is a little bit of a mind shift where, okay, I got the processes down. Now I want to create more of a business that, like you said, a legacy that can stand. So then it's more shifting towards putting people around them, figuring out how they can then scale that business, how they can almost automate it where, I would say you're never going to have fully automated real estate investing business. You're always going to, I think as entrepreneurs, we're always going to want to do something.
Sure, absolutely.
But then it really is scaling that business, getting all the pieces in place, whether it's, putting their marketing on autopilot, putting, project managers in place, acquisitions managers in place, putting all those people in place where that business then can easily run without them. And pretty much they have the systems, they have everything where it just keeps on churning out no matter what. And that is a big thing too, where I know a lot of real estate investors, family-oriented people worry too about, okay, what if something happens to me? What's going to happen to this business? So getting that set up where it's going to run without you is super important.
Yeah, it's interesting. So talk to me about that, Chris, for a minute. When we're working with a new student, let's take like a Joe Greaves, for example, 55 years old, very happy family man, living in Missouri. He was in kind of commercial construction, working on these massive $80 million, $150 million buildings. And he's basically like a project manager. And Joe is, just running like crazy, 60, 70 hours, traveling Monday through Friday, never home. And he now is thinking like, okay, I want to replace my income, get free. What is some of the members, my question specifically is, what are the members of sort of their dream team that they may not have on day one, but that we want them to start accumulating and acquiring, people that can surround them, whether it's acquisitions manager, realtor, title company, project manager, whatever. What is sort of like the minimum team that somebody needs in your mind when you're coaching somebody up? Who are the integral players that they need to get and bring onto their team as soon as possible so they're not doing everything by themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say probably number one is, and what I see is acquisitions manager. You need somebody that can field calls, that can go out on appointments, that can go out and look at houses, that can write up offers for you. And then you just have to kind of review them. Somebody that does all that legwork, because I honestly think if you really scale your business, you're really doing a lot of deals, that's a full-time job for somebody who's all they're doing is just evaluating deals, talking to sellers, browsing the MLS, doing everything related to finding deals. And, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of different things they can be doing. So I would say that's number one. And then the next thing is going to be a project manager. That can also be another full-time job where if you have multiple rehab projects going on, you need somebody to be checking on those projects weekly. if not every few days, making sure the project is on track, seeing if there's any change orders that come up and troubleshooting from there, ordering material, making sure it's on the job site, paying contractors, checking their work, making sure it's getting done properly. So those would be, I'd say, the two biggest things right then. And then there's other things, like everyone, of course, needs a realtor. Everyone needs a title company to work with, but those are more, I would say, a lot easier for somebody to find. And there's dozens of those everywhere that are good, solid companies and good, solid people.
Yeah, absolutely. The acquisitions manager, I agree, for sure, number one, because you got to look through a lot of deals right now. Like 5 years ago, it was easy to find deals and tougher to find money. Today, it's much tougher to find deals because there's just a lot of competition. The market's been growing. Everything goes through cycles, and we're at the top of a cycle. And deal flow is harder to find. So you've got to go off market, find lots of off market deals all the time. And then the project managers, just depends on how many deals you're doing, right?
Yeah.
If you've got one rehab going on, you don't really need a big project manager full time. But like for us, we've got over 100 investments going on, and a lot in Ohio, but outside of Ohio as a private lender, we're doing a lot of rehab projects locally. So we have Ricardo full time, who does nothing but check up on general contractors, check up on subcontractors, order materials. And then we even have a servicing manager. His name is Brian. And Brian does nothing but a lot of the administrative work. He's talking with local operators or local borrowers about how the deal is going. If they're a borrower and we're the lender, collecting, whether it's a monthly interest-only payment or issuing rehab draws, or, even changing over, if it's one of our deals, changing over the insurance, changing over the electrical, changing over the gas, changing over the water and sewer. So we've got a lot of that infrastructure in place. And then having an acquisitions manager for us, it's Chris Hofford, who's also our underwriter. We send all the deal flow to him, and he vets it all out, looks at it all, and sees if it's a good deal that we should really consider. So we have a bigger team, obviously a lot more deals. But when you're starting out, or even just going from intermediate to advanced, it's really just about, do you need that person if you're brand new part-time, to like if you're intermediate trying to go and building a 50-unit rental portfolio or a 100-unit rental portfolio and beyond, then that position doesn't really change. It just goes from part-time to full-time, right?
Yep.
So when you're dealing with new students, Chris, and you're kind of helping them build out their dream team, one of the things obviously they're going to need is multiple sources of funding. Now, if you're just wholesaling, you don't need any funding. Your funding is essentially your cash buyer's money, right?
Yeah.
But for our folks and the people that we serve and coach most, they're in that 45 to 65 to 70-year-old range, and they want to own assets. And funding equals freedom. We talk about that a lot. So just talk for a second about some of the different ways that you coach your students to get funding, whether it's private funding, lines of credit, banking relationships, whatever. I know you've done all of that and more. But when you're talking with somebody that's a new student of yours and they're looking to go to that advanced level and they need funding, what are some of the tips or things that you're focused on at the beginning with them?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I like my students to always do is their sphere of influence exercise, writing out everyone they possibly know, everyone they come into contact with. So really, that's really expanding their network of who they even think of. So from there, with raising private money, it's networking like crazy. It's going out, meeting people, shaking hands, kissing babies, all that stuff. So I really try to get them active in their community in different aspects, whether it's going to their REI, other, business networking events, chamber events, going out and meeting people and talking to them. And then it's also really, they need to be knowledgeable about what they're trying to pitch to people. So it's really going over a nice private lender pitch with them and making sure they understand what it is they're really kind of trying to sell. making sure they do it all legally in regards with the SEC and all those rules and regulations. And then it's really what I want to see everyone become is kind of, I look back on it like I want them to become like how I was early on, where I became almost the go-to person in my market for real estate advice, for real estate deals. So I want them to become that. And the way that I did it was through newsletters. I'd put out a creative, fun newsletter giving different tips, advertising some of the wholesale deals. But through the networking, I built up a big list of other real estate investors, other real estate people in the industry. And these, it almost became a little bit of a following where they liked me, they trusted me, they found me funny because I put jokes in and just talk about funny things I found in my real estate adventures. But that really, I think, was key to me becoming that go-to guy. And that led to, private lenders coming to me where I wasn't out always actively finding them, but they came to me because they were on my newsletter. They saw this, and those are, I would say, some of the big steps for one, starting to raise private money. And then once you get that private money, once you've done a few deals, you've got a good track record. There's just so many other lending options out there.
Yeah. And what's great about the private money that we raise is there's no credit checks. There's no income checks. There's really never a background check. It's really about the deal, right? So we find a deal, buy it for 150, needs 50 in rehab, a deal that we could easily wholesale. We decide to buy it, renovate it. We're really going to flip it or keep it as a rental, but all in for 200, it's going to be worth 300. So in that way, like we've always, for, maybe for the audience that doesn't know us or maybe doesn't know our philosophy is when we raise private money, we get all the money up front for purchase, rehab, closing costs, holding costs, all of it. And I typically pay my private investors 12% interest or 15% of my profits, whichever is higher. And they defer all the interest till when the property sells or when it refinances. So I have no monthly no mortgage payment to make. And all of that interest is deferred. And when the property sells, they get all their principal and all their interest paid off at the closing table. And we teach all of our students to do the same thing. And the other piece, like Chris mentioned, is we don't really make any assumptions about what, our friends, family, our network, the people on Facebook, the people that we're connected with, people at different groups, networking groups, people that are colleagues of ours. We don't make any assumptions about who has money and who doesn't, right? So, Chris, I tell the story all the time where I've got a lot of friends who live in big houses, 5,000, 7,000 square feet. They make big incomes, but as their income went up, so did their lifestyle. And they don't have any extra money in cash. They might have a big 401k that they're working on building, but they can't even access it till they're 60 years old. I've got a lot of friends like that. I've also got a lot of friends that, are people that I've met that make, I would say more of a modest income, a modest lifestyle that, that are not very extravagant, but save like crazy. And they've got cash coming out of their ears, and they've got a big pension and a big 401k, and they've got land, and they've got buildings, or they've got whatever. So maybe, Chris, just talk for a minute maybe about, I don't know if there's a story that you can think of off the top of your head. When you're talking to somebody who's either going to buy a property from you, sell a property to you, cheerlead for you, invest with you, you really can never make assumptions just on what people look like, right? About what they're going to do, how many properties they own, how much money they have. And that's why you kind of go talk to everybody about your business. So just maybe talk to that for a sec.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and especially Montana, where, people aren't as flashy here. I know one of the guys that I've wholesaled a lot of houses to over the years who, he's very wealthy, but every time I see him, I think he's about my dad's age, probably early 60s. But every time I see him, he's driving an old beat up pickup. He's, looks kind of grubby, but I've wholesaled. It's funny. I've wholesaled several houses to him, and $150,000. He just writes a check for it, or goes and gets a cashier's check and brings it to the title company, and it's a quick and easy transaction. So it definitely, like you said, you can never really judge these guys, and the same with private lenders. One good example is my grandma, who you'd never tell either that she had some money stashed away, but she's probably the cheapest person I know.
Right.
And that's why she has, we knew, and we never knew too until we moved my grandma from Arizona up here, and come to find out she's got a very large bank account where my mom never knew, my dad, nobody. So it's one of those things where you never know, and really you got to talk to these people. You got to figure out what their goals are, what they want, and really dig to find out what they have and what they're willing to invest. Some of these people, for my grandma, for example, is super, super conservative with her money. So she's not going to invest with anybody except for family. And you might have a grandma like that, or might have a uncle. You really never know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. Some people say like never do business with family. Other people say only do business with family. Do business with people you trust. And that's really what the real estate business is about, especially when you're accumulating assets. So like Darrin Mancuso is one of our coaches and one of my students who's grown up to be a coach. And Darrin followed the blueprint that we use to raise private money, raise millions and millions of dollars, did all these luxury rehabs, made a bunch of money flipping properties. And now Darrin really focuses mostly on wholesaling and cash flow. He focuses now, instead of doing all these big expensive rehabs where he's putting in $100,000, $200,000 just in the rehab, he's focused on getting these properties under contract and flipping them to other investors that want to do the rehab. And then he's taking the profits off the table to invest in cash flowing assets, singles, doubles, fourplexes, small apartments, to do that. But he was able to get started because he started raising money. And Darrin said the same things. Like, I got all these buddies of mine that have memberships, these yacht clubs, and they go on their boats every weekend, and they've got zero money, extra money. And then I have these other friends who own like the little dinky fishing boat at the yacht club, and these guys are loaded, and they only own a boat because they like to fish. And it's just this kind of mishmash of people and how they want to live their life. I'm baffled by how many attorneys I've met, doctors I've met, guys who are partners at accounting firms who have no extra money laying around. And I'm baffled by how many people like out in the country, suburban, that have $100,000, $400,000 sitting around in cash. You just never know. That's why, like Chris said, you put yourself out there and teach people about what they can do with real estate, making no assumption at all that they would invest with you. And if they find you like a video like this, or a newsletter, or email marketing, or just a simple phone call presentation, you never know who can come out of the woodwork and do a deal with you. So Chris, as we kind of round third here and head home and kind of get to the point of wrapping up, obviously right now the big part about the business is money seems more abundant than deals. So when you're coaching a student, whether it's again an intermediate investor looking to become advanced or somebody new, what are some of the different techniques that you've worked with some of your coaching students to get deal flow today? What are some of the different creative ways that you're helping them find deal flow? Yeah,
absolutely. What I personally like to do with all the students is start with some basic things. I like to start with, even if the MLS is a little dry, I like all students to start out making offers on the MLS. One, it's going to be the easiest way for them to practice and to master the process of running their numbers, looking at houses, evaluating deals. So even if they don't get a lot of deals from the MLS, that's going to help them understand the process. And the more you do that, the better you're going to get. So I like to have them do that. The other thing I like to have every student do is go out and find vacant houses, go out, drive some neighborhoods. There's something about getting out there, getting out in the field, looking at houses, seeing different neighborhoods that really helps out. So finding vacant houses. And then, there's high equity absentee owners. I like to get students doing direct mail. But for every student, what I found is every market is a little different, and every student needs to find their own little niche. Like we have one student, Lakeisha, in Houston, where, she's tried everything, every different lead type. And she found that for her, that's just killing it right now. She just did a wholesale deal and made $25,000 on it here. I think it was a couple weeks ago, but she's killing it with tax liens, not like the actual liens, but going after people who are late on their taxes, getting to them before it goes to auction, buying the house, wholesaling the house. So it's really finding what works for you, finding that little niche. It could be tax liens. It could be probate. It could be vacant houses, which for me, in my market, vacant houses has been a staple in my business for years and years. It's been one of my best sources. But for everyone, it's finding that niche. It might be pre-foreclosures. It might, whatever it is. So I encourage all my students to try several different things and find what they like, find what works. Once they find what's working, what's bringing in the most leads, and then it's scaling that and ramping up the marketing towards that. So that's what I encourage everyone to do. And that's how I go about looking at students, because every market's different, but the basic principles work in every market. It's just how well they work.
Right. Yeah. Great point. I think a lot of brand new students, because sometimes they might be coming in with a limited budget and nobody wants to waste money, right? Nobody wants to waste money on market. So everybody's kind of looking for a silver bullet. Like, tell me what's going to work. And what we say, like, we sat down as a group with all of our Masters Elite Maverick Mastermind members a couple years ago. We created this massive report, 55 ways to find deals, and every single one of those methods works. But in your market, a couple of those are going to work better than others. And I love your approach, Chris, because you can say, okay, start with the MLS, get practice, making offers, talking with realtors, evaluating deals, makes total sense. Vacant houses is every market. There's vacant houses. Could be the hottest market, could be California, could be the Silicon Valley, San Francisco. There's going to be vacant houses there. Even in the hottest markets, Seattle, Chicago, New York, it's vacant house for sure. Those are two staples. Then I love the idea of direct mail, because you can start with a small test, a couple hundred postcards, not spending much money, test out different lists, see what's working, and then grow and scale that from there. So fantastic. Awesome stuff, Chris. So listen, as we kind of wrap up here, a couple resources I want to give out to our audience. First of all, if you are looking for funding, a lot of people are looking for funding. There's lots of different types of funding. We just released our new website, freelandlending.com. We are a private lender. We fund both rehabs, rentals, pools of rentals. We do cash out refis, and we even fund equity, both debt and equity, into apartments. We just funded $1.4 million into a 753 unit apartment building. We're all in for $24 million. After repaired values, $40 million. We placed $1.4 million of cash into the equity in that deal as part of the down payment, which is really, really exciting. And then we just funded an apartment deal for Mike Johnson and for Jack Petrick, little smaller deals, a 15 unit and a 35 unit, where we funded the debt, like the first mortgage, the 80%. So we do all that. If you're looking for funding, check out freelandlending.com. Also, Chris is one of our featured speakers on our classes. We teach live coaching classes every week. And we also do one or two big live events a year. where we usually have anywhere between, 100 people on the low end up to 300 people on the high end come out. It's normally coaching students and customers of ours come out to our events. But Chris is one of our featured speakers specifically to talk about how he coaches our students and specifically talk about getting deal flow. And we have an event coming up in December. You can check that out at flipandfun.com and hear directly from me and directly from Chris live from the stage. So check out flipandfun.com. The closer and closer we get to our events, the more expensive the prices get, right? So you're best the further away from the event you can be, the better price you're going to get on your tickets. Also, Chris, I wanted to make sure if anybody watches this and wants to connect with you, wants a joint venture with you, maybe be a private lender for you or bring you deal flow or just has questions, maybe it's a local investor in the Billings market. How can our audience get in touch with you specifically? Do you have maybe a website or an email address that you can throw out there?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to ChristopherCeder.com. That's SEDER.com. Check me out there. Otherwise, Facebook. Go on Facebook and just search for me there. I would say those are the two best places. Yeah,
fantastic, Chris. That sounds good. Hopefully we'll get people to connect with you and do deals. Joe Nemeth, one of our students, said the other day to me, he said, we all do better when we do deals together, which I thought was
like it. Yeah.
I thought was really cool. So last and finally, like as I mentioned, Chris is one of our coaches, does a fantastic job. If you're looking for mentoring, coaching, you need some one-on-one hand-holding to get to the next level, you can apply for our coaching program at joshcantwellcoaching.com. Check that out. And last but not least, if you like this interview, this is going to be available on iTunes, YouTube, probably Facebook, and some other places. If you like the video, leave us a 5-star rating, a thumbs up. Leave us comments below the video. Leave us a 5-star rating. If you didn't like the video, you thought it was terrible, still leave us a 5-star rating. And just leave your comments and questions below the video. My team will be monitoring those platforms for questions. And if we have a question for Chris, we'll ping him and feed the question to him, or we'll answer it right on that page, right? So definitely leave your comments, questions, ratings, reviews right on the site. So we really appreciate that. So Chris, any final parting shots, words of encouragement, anything else that we missed?
I don't think we missed much, but I would say just get out there and make it happen. Get out there and try a bunch of different things. Get out there and learn as much as possible. And just putting yourself out there, you're gonna succeed. So get out and make it happen.
Yeah. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? Not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So.
Exactly.
All right, guys. So check out Chris, ChristopherCeder.com. And again, if you have an opportunity to meet Chris at one of our live events, go to flipandfun.com. And thanks so much to everybody for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the interview, and we'll see you on the next one. Talk to you soon. Take care.